If you've ever wondered what it takes to create a 100-point wine, but also what does it really take to be able to create a 100-point American whiskey, and are the two one and the same, or there's some really unique differentiation with what goes into each? Well, today's the day where we're sitting down with our good friend from the Bourbon Lore family, the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mark Carter. Yeah, round of applause from the audience. But we're here today to be able to have a conversation with Mark, who has an incredible background over on the West Coast in California and in the wine world, and is an absolute legend, and some of the incredible things that he's been doing in American whiskey. So as you can see, a little bit of a diversified lineup here with both a little bit of wine, some rye, some bourbons, and a limited edition collaboration blend here. So what a treat. Thank you for having us, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting me to take part in this. This is really fun.
Yeah.
And I love this group. It's a fabulous group of gentlemen. And they're so knowledgeable when it comes to all the whiskeys. They're walking around libraries, I think.
Yeah. We're nerds.
Wow. So first things first, I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, what do you got going on here today?
Well, I thought I would bring a few things that that I had started, and the first thing I brought, we opened it up as the Carter Cellars, which is the wine. This is a 2021 vintage, and it came off of Las Piedras, and it is the La Bam. I'm so fortunate to have a great team in Calistoga. You asked what makes 100-point wines, it's and 100-point whiskeys. It really is about the team. If you don't have a great team, you're not going to do much.
Amen.
And you got to inspire, and also you got to be very lucky, and timing is everything. I was lucky enough to get to Napa in '98. And so in '98, I was able to have a great guy named Nils Vinge, was the first guy ever to make a 100-point wine in America.
Wow.
And Nils became friends with me, and he was my first winemaker. And then I was lucky enough to find a guy named Fred Schrader, who got me on To Kalon, which is one of the greatest vineyards in the world. And we've made quite a few 100-point wines off of that vineyards. So
Just pause for a minute. Quite a few 100-point wines. Hey.
Also great wines come from great vineyards, and you start with great grapes, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So walk us whiskey nerds through how to properly nose and get into a wine versus a whiskey. Like, what are the big differences?
Well, I don't think there's too much differences.
Yeah.
It is, aromatics, color, they always say, hey, look at the color, it's deep, rich, it's not thin. This is Cabernet, so usually it's the most concentrated of the varietals. Usually for us, we make a lot of Cabernet, but you can swirl it around. I know sometimes there's pros and cons of swirling around your bourbon, but we always swirl our wine right. For some unknown reason. Try to get a little more air into it. This with our wine, it's 100% new French oak, and it's maybe toasted levels or different toasted levels, but never charred. You hopefully, when you make a great wine, it'll have wonderful aromatics, deep, rich flavors, balance. You don't want just one way. You would like to have some freshness that keeps it going. To salivate a little bit. That makes a big difference. The longer the length of the wine, usually the better the wine is. So that's a couple of little easy.
No, I love it. That's great information
to learn.
Take us back for a moment. Part of what obviously we're doing with Bourbon Lore is being able to share in the history, the story, kind of the heritage of the different relationships and the collaborations that we're establishing. But also to get into a little bit of the lore about some of the unique kind of chapters or releases that some of our distillery partners have had. Share with us a little bit around the history and the lore of Carter Cellars, and wine was your first love. And obviously whiskey has grown into something now that's your new love, but obviously take us back a little bit and just kind of give us a little bit of the snapshot of how did Carter Cellars ultimately come about? A little bit of the name with I know obviously we talked about the logo and some of the coloring. Like there's some cool lore that you have going on with Carter Cellars here.
Yeah, I've always loved flavor, and I guess I'm a flavor chaser and have been all my life. I actually opened a little bed and breakfast up in '82, and then that took off, and it grew. And then I opened up a hotel in '86, and thought we should have a restaurant with that. And so '87 we opened up the restaurant, and I became the wine buyer for the restaurant.
So that was in the early '80s, and then you started becoming the wine buyer for your bed and breakfast and for your inn. What was it that you think attracted you to wine that you enjoyed so much, where you said, I want to actually take this adventure on and pursue my passion in winemaking?
Well, half of my heritage is Italian, and so my grandfather used to make wine. And when you were even 3 years old, Sunday night dinner, you got a little wine with a meal. And they put a little water or a 7-Up in it, and then so they got you hooked pretty early.
Yeah. Very civilized. And the 7-Up or the wine?
I think the wine. I like my wine. If I was going to water it back, it had to be water. So
you got a little Italian heritage, and it's been a part of kind of who you are. It's in your story, it's in your DNA, and it's in your journey.
Yeah, and I started buying the wine for the restaurant, and pretty soon I had like 4,000 wines on the wine list.
4,000.
Yeah, wow. Different selections, so it was a pretty big, thick book, one of those crazy old-fashioned.
Is this for the restaurant, or was this for your own personal enjoyment as a collector?
I think it was both, really, I figured that if I built it, they would come and, stay.
You're going to enjoy it.
Exactly. And I learned a lot about wine and tasting wine and meeting a whole bunch of producers from all over the world.
Wow. So how did the opportunity come together to officially launch Carter Cellars? Yeah.
Well, I had been talking to Nils, my friend, who was that 100-point winemaker for Groth back in '85. And this is it took me about 10 years to convince him. So I was doing winemaker dinners with him in 87, I think it was, when he opened the restaurant up. And it took me till almost 98 to convince him to make the wine. And I didn't know much about making wine at the time. And so he finally says, yes, I'll make some wine for you. And he said, now, where are the grapes coming from? And I said, grapes? I thought you gave me the grapes. All I did was pay the bills. Yeah. And he goes, no, Mark, that's not how it works, He said, you go find some grapes, you bring the grapes to me, and I'll make wine for you. I said, oh, Jesus, now I got to go find some grapes. That might take me another 10 years. It's going to be a long project. But as luck has it, I was pretty lucky. I went back to my restaurant, and there was a gentleman in there one night, just a month or so later, and he's sitting at table 5, and he's buying these first growth Bordeaux's, and he's probably spent about $4,000 that night, and that's a huge night for my little 35-seat restaurant.
Right, especially.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Goes a long way.
So I come back and I see the dining room manager. He says, yeah, Fred at table 5's made our night. I said, well, geez, that's a good host. I should probably go over and say hello. So I go over and say, hi, how is everything? He goes, oh my God, this is amazing wine list you have here. And I said, well, thank you very much. I'm working really hard to get a grand award from Wine Spectator. He said, well, you have my wine on this list. And I said, well, which wine's yours? And this is when he says, well, it's the Schrader Colgan wine. I'm Fred Schrader. And I go, oh my God, I've been buying your wine since '92, your first release.
Yeah, right.
And so, I said, how's the wine? He says, well, it's really good. Why don't you get a glass? And I said, I don't mind if I do. So I came back and sat down, and pretty soon we were drinking a few more bottles out of the cellar, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and he finally said, you ever think about making wine? And I said, yeah, I've got Nils that said he'd make some wine, but I don't have any grapes. and Fred says, well, I have some grapes that my winemaker doesn't want to use. You can have my grapes. And I go, oh my God, this is too good to be true.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And so
what year was that?
this is 98.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we went over to check it out, and there it was.
Wow. And the rest was history, or
Yeah.
what did that lead to?
What did that lead to?
Well,
We were fortunate enough to start making wine for 2 years, and then he got me on Tokalon in 2000.
wow. Okay.
And I've been there ever since. And so this will be our 25th year that we've been on Tokalon.
Wow.
And we've been buying more and more parts of Tokalon. We have every actual the clone in there. We're in every block, and we have every clone on Tokalon, which is really nice because that makes it great when you blend wine. You have all that variety to blend with.
I know Carter Cellars has a number of accolades, and I have some wine friends who are huge fans. When did you get your first 100-point wine?
Well, it was for the year 2002, but I got it 10 years after I made the wine. And it was by Robert Parker, gave me 100 points 10 years after we made the wine in 2012. And he fell in love. I was so afraid of Robert Parker because the first year he gave me an 89 and a 90. So I didn't go back for about 10 years to have him rate my wines.
wow. Okay.
Well, congratulations, and it's absolutely phenomenal, Mark. Bring us into the whiskey world. How did whiskey come into your journey?
Well, we were doing so good with the Carter Cellars. We were selling the wine, making enough money. It was time to maybe buy something in Napa Valley. And so Nils Bengi said, Mark, you should get something before you can't afford anything in Napa. I said, that's a good idea. I said, but I don't know anybody down here. And if you'll be my partner, because you've been down here for already 30 or 40 years, I said, I would love to have you as a partner. And we bought the winery together after looking for almost 2 years. And we found a place on Tubbs Lane, 1170 Tubbs Lane, and we called it Envy. And we were doing okay. We weren't making any money yet. We were starting to make wine for other people, Custom Crush. And I, being an innkeeper, for all of the years I had already been an innkeeper, almost 20 years by this time, I ended up talking to all my friends that had inns and said, hey, I can make some wine for you. Mm-hmm. And I asked 400 different inns in America, and only one guy in America wanted some wine. And it just so happened he was in Kentucky here, and he had just taken over the inn from his mom and dad, Helen and Chuck Dedman. And Chuck, I had been out here about 35 years ago, and Chuck and Helen took me all around. They took me to Maker's Mark, and they took me to Keeneland, and they showed me, and talked about their history, and they used to have tobacco, and they used to make some bourbon. And they told me this story about their bourbon company that they had. And it was a sad story because they lost the bourbon company, in about 1914, and they never got it back. It went downriver. And when Dixon wanted to start making some wine, I said, it'd be okay, but your dad told me a story. You used to make bourbon, and I said, why don't we bring your bourbon brand back? And he said, we could do that. And I said, Dixon, we can do anything we set our minds to. That was Kentucky Owl.
Good old Kentucky Owl.
So Dixon Dedman and the three of us, we put together, we were able to find some barrels back then. And Richard Wolf sold us the barrels back then. And we bought about, I think it was 50 barrels back then, 25 and 25. And they were 4-year and 2-year-old at the time. And
There's bourbon and rye.
they had a little rye in it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So being a flavor chaser, as you called it, which I love, I'm sure there's a lot of similarities and some differences between blending wine and also blending whiskey. I'm sure you applied a lot of knowledge from wine to whiskey, but tell me about the difference between the two and blending projects together.
Well, when we got to the, buying the barrels, the first thing we actually did was, I said, well, let's throw some more flavor at it. And we, back then in 2011, we said, well, let's put more oak on it. So we were some of the first people really to double barrel the whiskey, and because we had been doing that in the wine business out in California, and we gave it more flavor. And that's how we brought it to Kentucky. And also, we decided that we wanted to make sure everything was barrel strength. And a lot of people hadn't been doing barrel strength yet, to speak of, back in 2011 and 12. So then we let it age for quite a while, about 3 years before we started really blending it. In 2014, we finally started putting the blend together. And that was fun. We thought we could get by with some single barrels right off the bat, but they really weren't that interesting. And so we had, Dixon had actually done some preliminary blends. And then when we came in, we did our final blends with the three of us and blended the whiskey together. And then we were lucky enough to, Jimmy Rutledge came over and tasted it for us. And that was fun.
It's not a bad taster.
Not a bad taster. And it was fun because when he was there, and he came over, we pushed those single barrels over there, and he tasted. He was really good because he didn't say anything. And that's when well, maybe that was not the best stuff, and we did another one, didn't say much. And we pushed our little blend over, and he tasted it and says, well, now you got some.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so then the next thing he said, that, which was really funny, because then he said, now, what are you going to proof this at? And he said, proof it? And we're going to roll it out at full strength. And he goes, you can make a lot more money if you put water in it.
Water's cheap.
Yeah, and that's when we said the famous line. It says, we don't care about making money. We just want to make friends.
Oh, you and Julian, Van Winkle.
Were you surprised at how well Kentucky Owl did right out? I mean, it sounds like kind of a passion project, but it really took the world by storm. That first,
it was crazy. Dixon would call me up and all the time and said, there are people standing in line for this stuff. He says, they got me signing bottles,
So what year did you guys officially release the first Kentucky Owl?
2014.
2014. And that was the bourbon blend.
Yeah.
And then the rye came.
Well, Dixon's ryes were after we sold the company. Yeah, so in 2017, Stoli Vodka came, and they ended up buying, right after the first year, bought Kentucky Owl, and Dixon stayed with the company. And we decided that we would go start Old Carter Whiskey Company.
And that was in 2017.
That is correct, yep.
Old Carter. Talk to us about the magic behind Old Carter.
Well, again, we did the similar thing that we like doing. We bought barrels with the money that we got from ourselves, Kentucky Owl, and we started actually distilling too. And we found a couple different places that would distill for us in Kentucky, because we wanted our own make, and that was in 2017, and we still have that product, and it's 7 years, and it's basically something that we want to start blending and actually getting it in bottles soon, because the other thing is 7 to 9 years is really still kind of a sweet spot for bourbon.
Right,
it's always fun to have some older stuff, put double digits on it. We have 15-year-old single barrels and 16 now. But it's nice to have something you roll out that tastes good. It has lots of flavor, and that 7 to 9 year, and you still have quite a bit in the barrel, which is good too.
Mm-hmm. So this lineup here, Mr. Carter, what would you like to start with?
Well, let's see here. Let's maybe. You want to try a collaboration first or afterwards? Because this is a reason I brought this out. This was a collaboration that we did with Bardstown Bourbon Company, and it was the Carter Cellars wine barrels that we used, and a lot of the To Kalon barrels. It's all To Kalon barrels, and we finished it in a blend of 3 different spirits there from actually 3 different states: Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana.
Yeah, let's
Have you had? I don't know if anybody has said it.
While the wine is fresh on our palates, let's visit
I
that.
think
It'll be a
it's
nice
the way to go.
gateway bridge to whiskey.
What on the back here it says "Born from the Soul of Somerset."
Well, I have a connection to Kentucky. My grandmother was from Somerset, Kentucky. And so when Prohibition came, they had to leave Kentucky for jobs. they went to Southern California, and they had to work in the oil fields down there. And so always wanted to get back, I guess, to Kentucky. It was supposed to happen. Yeah, they grew corn down there in Somerset. And
you got lineage everywhere. Italy, Kentucky.
I like to tie it all. I do like to tie it all together. So I guess we came from a long line of drinkers.
So it was yourself and Danny Calloway who did this blend?
Yeah,
Nice.
and our team too. So
And your team.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow. Yeah, that you really get.
What's the age mix on this?
well, this has some of that Tennessee, which I think is the 17-year-old Tennessee, which was a very low proof. On the 17-year for the Tennessee, and then we had the 12-year-old Kentucky, and then there's the 6-year-old Indiana.
What are you grabbing on that nose, Emerson?
Really, really rich fruit, like red fruit, like.
This project was so fun because we got to use the rickhouse. After we put it in the barrels, we put it on 3 different levels of the rickhouse, and it was we would check it every month to see how it was tasting. And unbelievable how it would taste on the top floor. It would all the flavors were starting to drop out, and the alcohol was starting to show really quickly. And so we moved that down from the top floor to the kind of the bottom floor and the mid floors, and so that was. First time we really got to play with a rickhouse and blending.
Right. Now, there's definitely an art to blending. It's a very different thing than just picking a single barrel. There's much more that goes into it. You have to build it from a base. Like, do you have a strategy or something that works well for you for blending whiskeys together?
Most everything we do is about 15 barrels. Yeah. That's the biggest we can almost do. We did 17, depending on how old and how much yield is out of that barrel. So when you do actually get ready to put that together with 17 barrels, we may take as many as 30 to 40 barrels and bring them over, sample those, and pull what we like in the flavors. It's not all sweet, you've got different layers of flavors that you like, and you look for you kind of just make sure you don't have one that's going to not be something that you want to use in that. And you start, pulling together and try to keep what we're looking for, which is that deep, rich flavors, yet still have the aromatics and some of that great fruits that you can get too. That balance again,
Well, and I think that is, to me, what defines a lot of your whiskeys. It's that balance, but also lots of flavor. And I think, it's always great to smell an old Carter whiskey. Like there is something that really pops in each one. And
The nose on this, the aroma is freaking unbelievable.
yeah,
I've not been a big finish guy. The only kind of finish we've ever done is another American oak barrel that's charred in different levels. And so but I knew that the team over at Bardstown Bourbon Company, if anybody could do it, and with us and then our barrels,
agree.
Yeah.
Old Carter. We got obviously a few samples here. What would you say? I mean, how do you describe Old Carter in the lineup today of American whiskeys? Where do you see yourself, and how do you feel your brand differentiates itself?
We're definitely a craft brand. These are all hand bottled still, and I think the largest batch we've ever done is probably around 3,400. This rye over here, this batch 12 rye, is 3,200. We don't have large tanks, and it's kind of fun. We love having those small batches. It's easier for us to blend. We taste and we know every one of those barrels by the time we get ready to blend. And then we know how much is in each barrel. So but it's very precise when we do a blend.
Wow.
But I don't know where we really fall in the scheme of things with what's going on in American whiskey. I love bourbon, I love rye, and we love making the American whiskey, which is, we kind of started with that. We love the flavor of it. It's mostly a corn mash bill. And, I think being from that eastern Kentucky, corn is in my DNA. And the more corn, I think the sweeter it's going to be. So let's see. We got probably start with a bourbon here. I got two, maybe one bourbon or two. Yeah, one bourbon. We got one bourbon. We got a single barrel.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Let's do the bourbon. This one here. I'll let you guys pour because I'll pour all over. I'll pour here, I can get you, but Clay.
That's great. Thank you.
And then you guys can.
Is this one a blend of yours, or is this a single barrel?
This is a blend. Awesome. This is batch 15. And what I like about this is, I'll tell you after, you guys.
Coming in at 117, bottle number 2623.
You guys also, I like to hear your guys' feedback. I don't want to influence you at all.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Beautiful.
Again, I could just smell this all day. There's so much going on.
Well said, Mark. It's not always easy finding your beautiful expressions across the U.S. So for us fans out there and enthusiasts, maybe explain how there's obviously an opportunity to find it, but there's a special place here in Kentucky where you probably need to come.
So that's the club right here where we're at today is the social club. We have approximately 300 members and 200 members that are on the wait list. We usually put things in lockers for our members that sometimes that you can't get anywhere else. We make special batches for the club. And a lot of times they'll say OC on it. That means Old Carter. It's only available through Old Carter. But we do have 9 distributors in the United States. And so hopefully you can find some. And we also do very small batches for our distributors that they only get themselves. And those are 5-barrel blends, which are fun too to knock out. We can do a couple a year or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. To me, this is like, just a bouquet out of the glass, but for me, I get like a custard and almost like a banana bread on it.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of Southern hospitality to me, like kind of nose. Flavors are huge, but it has this kind of soft, elegant texture, which is not easy to do with 120 proof whiskey.
So this is, it was a little more interesting. We don't get this very often. This batch 15 is 100% double barreled. Everybody says double oak today. What does that really mean? So have to start saying, a double barreled, because we actually put in another barrel. A lot of people, you can use staves and everything else. So we've always just used barrels. And so this is 100% double barreled. Yeah. And we've only done that twice. This is batch 5 and batch 15. And because sometimes it's too much. So that's, again, when we're blending, we'll maybe pull some of that out and not use
What do cooperages and barrels mean to you coming from the wine world now into the bourbon world?
Well, we like to use different barrels. So we really started using about 5 different cooperages. Just like in the wine business, we have about 5 different cooperages that we use in the wine business. Again, they all add a little different flavor profiles.
What about, so I gather you use a lot of French oak for your wine.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. So probably a good amount of American oak for your whiskey. What are the different characters of French versus American oak?
Well, it really depends. French oak is usually a lot of vanilla, tons of vanilla usually, It depends on what we found, and I experienced this very early on in the wine business. I had some very young barrels, and it made my wine green. And it wasn't the wine itself, it was the barrel. And so when we started making whiskey, we found that we could find barrels, and I told everybody, but I found some 36-month air-dried barrels, and I just loved them because they weren't green at all. Because a lot of people would always say, rye, so, it has that menthol and stuff. Rye is already young, and if you have a young barrel, you're going to get a green notes. Mm-hmm. So we don't use anything, the 8-month, they have a lot of 8-month out there and all this stuff. That's for somebody else, but you have to pay a lot more for 36 months.
Yeah, right. I mean, think about that. Like, how fascinating is it when you think about all the effort and energy going in to be able to get to a place where you can even potentially have a 7-year, 8-year, or 9-year to be able to bottle. And then think about the barreling component and being able to not only make a barrel and everything goes into the cooperage, but having to allow that barrel to season for not just 6 months, 8 months, but for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible the amount of time that goes into being able to create a true level of expression that wows the palate.
Yeah. And it's about, a lot of it is about the barrel.
Yeah, of course.
So you got to start with good barrels too.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you use, when it's bourbon versus rye, you're looking for different barrels or different characters.
Again, I'll put them in all 5 different cooperages and different char levels and all of those things. And then, you just pull them out and say, oh my God, this is a beautiful barrel. But you can take 2 of those beautiful barrels, and you go, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. You put them together and they almost cancel each other out sometimes. So again, a lot of times it's just like, you got to just keep tasting and saying, nope, that didn't work. You pull that one out and you put some back in,
Yeah. Does that get frustrating sometimes when you're blending, and you think, oh, this is going to work, and you take all that time and you have to go back to the drawing board and
we do it over and over and over again. It's just like, and then eventually you'll hit one and you'll just go, oh my God, that's amazing. And it'll raise the hair on the back of your arm or whatever.
Yeah.
And you go, that's something special. Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah. Is that what you wait for? That kind of aha tingly moment where you go, that's the one.
Every time.
If it starts to touch the emotions inside, that's when you know it's great.
Yeah, it's like great music.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it moves you, I'm not, I want our whiskeys and our wines to really, make a memory for you, and that's what it's about. I don't need to make a lot, but I want to make something really special.
Speaking of aha moments, do you have an aha moment where you really found a passion for whiskey? I mean, before Old Carter, like when you're tasting whiskeys, do you have a bottle that you're like, wow, I love this?
Well, Booker's turned me on to Full Proof.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Booker's, making Manhattans instead of makers, I said, man, it's like a drink and a half, and it holds up. It holds up to a cocktail.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure.
So that's why I said it should be foolproof, and that was, let the customer, proof it however he wants, drink it however he wants, put a cube on it, whatever, make it a cocktail. Yeah. Give them the flavor up front, and then they can do whatever they want with it, But you really want to show that your best foot forward every time.
Yeah.
No disrespect to makers. So we love makers, but Booker's changed a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those early Bookers that we have in the Bourbon Lore collection. We have a special piece that we have in the book that's going to be coming out. One of the early Bookers. It's 1979.
I can't wait to see your book.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been fun to make.
The second iteration, we're going to have to. You have obviously, as you know, with Bourbon Lore, we are fascinated with some of the unique expressions that have become kind of characters in the history of American whiskey that have really acted as kind of like icons and being able to tell the story of American whiskey, right? You have a special bottle that Clay happened to fall in love with one of his write-ups. Clay, you want to share the bottle that you had of Old Carter that kind of changed your world that you wrote about?
Oh, which one was it?
Wasn't that the 27 year?
Oh my God, did you have the 27?
Wasn't it? I think it was.
You're right.
That bottle is unbelievable.
All just sort of blends into my...
Clay's written a lot of books. Clay writes a lot. Which book was that? What year?
Was that the bourbon or the rye?
I have not had that bottle yet. But Clay, you want to share a few words on that?
I mean, to me, it's just everything that Old Carter is, right? In terms of, we were saying earlier, the balance, the power, the flavor. I mean, I think that of the brands, of the people making whiskey today, Old Carter is one of the few that really reaches back to what I think of as, sort of older school flavor profiles of real power, real expression and balance. you get a lot of classic notes out of Old Carter, to me. And that one just more than any really spoke to that.
But when we found those 20 barrels and we tasted those samples, I go, oh my God, this is delicious. I said, oh my God. I said, I don't care what it is. And it was, it's light whiskey, but it was Seagram's made it, back then.
Is that right?
A couple of those barrels, we had a couple that are 29, and same thing, we finally bottled it all, so. But
Share in the comments below if you want Mr. Mark Carter to come to your next Bourbon Lore experience. Which bottle do we want him to bring to share with us? Might be that 27. Just kind of put in the comments below. We'll make sure to add it in there for Mark.
that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. He's like Mason.
So we do have one OC, which was only club. So here's this is 22. This is a single barrel. So this is what we picked for a single barrel.
A 15-year
Yeah.
barrel.
Oh, great. Thanks. Oh.
How does Mark Carter mark a single barrel versus what goes into a blend? Is that something happens when you're tasting barrels? Do you set aside something that you taste that's amazing and you say, like, let's save this one for a single barrel, or how does that work?
But we'll do the same thing when we're tasting through all the barrels, and we come upon one that's like, oh my God, this is like what we would blend.
Yeah.
That's when same thing. Yeah. We don't have to blend it. We love blending, so it's kind of like,
I know that's your background with wine. You're an expert, wine blender, so I imagine. But
So we got a 15-year barrel, number 22, bottle number 120 of 124.
yeah,
Coming in at 115.6.
straight Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
And what are the different colors here? You've got red, green, and it's like a blue.
Yeah. So the green is the rye always.
Yeah.
And the blue is the American.
Okay.
And then if you've got the single barrel, it's red.
I see. Okay.
And then this is the bourbon, which is black.
Okay. Oh, that's
actually.
black. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Wow.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I love the nose on this. Spectacular.
Yeah, I get more kind of a bubble gum a little bit, like a sweet,
Some,
fruity.
you probably know who made that then.
Yeah. No, and it follows through on the palate. It's really.
Yeah, we got 100 barrels of this back in, I think about 17 or 18. And it was 12 years old at the time.
Wow. I think that could fit in my suitcase.
Absolutely. And very different from the first bourbon we tried. Well, I think your journey has been pretty incredible so far. Where do you see Old Carter in the next few years? What are you hoping to do with the brand?
Would love to always grow, but when you grow, you want to do it in the right way. You don't need to just grow to be growing. If it's not going to be the best,
better over quality over quantity.
God, always. So here we're going to do this rye, and we're going to see what you think, because I'll let you pour the rye.
Now, this is the rye that you were saying just scored 100 points.
Yes.
What spirits competition was that?
Well, I have this one reviewer, Jeb Dunnick, that comes by, and he reviews my wine, but he also loves bourbon and whiskeys.
Oh.
So I think you're going to see a few more reviews of other brands and stuff. But he fell in love with this rye. So.
And tell us about it.
Well, this is, again, it's I love 95.5, and then we have some 99% rye too that we had at it's Kentucky, but it hasn't seen the light of day yet.
Okay.
But then we do what we do, and we blend it.
So this is a blend, but it's all.
It's all 95.5. Yeah.
Ooh. Now it's small batch. It's different ages. What are we?
We never have anything less than 7 years in our any of our bottles. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bubble mint.
That's a good bubble mint.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, really get that mint. Sweet, sweet mint.
Oh, the finish on that.
Oh, that.
Wow.
It
He had a lot of tea on that too.
a lot of tea,
Yeah.
especially the finish.
And that's what I just cracked this too. So
Get a little bit of Christmas spice.
like orange spice tea, almost like that.
Yeah,
kind
maybe
of
it's the
orangey.
orange spice that reminds me of holidays.
Mark, when you think about what Bourbon Lore is doing with creating these unique experiences, collaborating with incredible individuals, and bringing to life, these this element of both the enthusiast, the connoisseur, the collector, like what excites you about where we're at with Bourbon Lore, and any sort of wisdom that you'd impart on us with everything you've been able to accomplish with Carter Cellars, obviously with what you did with Dixon and Kentucky Owl, now with what you're working on with Old Carter.
well, I think you're totally on the right path. Everything you're doing, you've laid a really great, groundwork for a long, I think, history of what's going to come next. And by bringing back all the different great whiskeys, with the book that you guys are doing, and it's, I think it's spectacular, exposing people to, this wonderful, kind of spirit that we have of American spirit,
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that a lot. And I will say there's an element of we are about the individuals that are pushing the envelope to do something unique and meaningful, and are not just here because of a volume game. They're not just here because they want to be able to sell at a high price point, but they want to be able to create and write a new level of history and lore in a spirit category that we feel extremely close to. And we think that you clearly have done just that. And it's an honor for us as Bourbon Lore to be a part of this with you at Old Carter. So from the Bourbon Lore family to the Old Carter family, and to a legend in the making, we appreciate you. So cheers to Mr. Mark Carter.
Well, I love you guys. Thank you.
Love you too,
And
brother.
it's always fun.
Cheers.
Thank you.